Hello and welcome to Arise America. I'm Gary Anthony Ramsey. Tens of thousands turn out again Thursday to pay their last respects to Nelson Mandela. But an investigation begins into how the interpreter with mental issues got this close to world leaders. And frustration grows among the mourners turned away again Thursday from the viewing of Madiba's body. We'll have complete coverage of Nelson Mandela and the day's news ahead on Arise America.
From coast to coast, every culture, every angle. This is Arise America.
Welcome. Debbie Turner-Bell is on assignment tonight. For the second day in a row, thousands of South Africans turned out to take a last look at Nelson Mandela, who was lying in state. As the black hearse carrying Mandela's coffin wove through the streets of Pretoria, people chanted and even sang songs as Madiba's body passed by.
He fought for us. We are whom we are because of him. Today we are in the offices because of him. Today we can be able to use computers because of him. We are now in an advanced technology world because of him. If it wasn't for him, we were not going to be here.
I think it's to live a part of history, and I'd like to tell my children one day of what I experienced here. And so it's my part to celebrate the life of a great man.
I'm happy that today I could pay the last respect for him. When I heard that we lost him, I was so sad, and I never got the opportunity to meet him when he was still alive. So this is my last chance to meet him, and I'm so happy.
In oppressive heat, thousands lined up and waited for hours, some of them, just to be taken to the Union buildings for their turn to file past Mandela's casket. The last chance to see the man regarded as the father of a democratic South Africa.
When I heard the news on Thursday, I was very sad. And I went to Tata's house and I sang the freedom songs and dancing and doing all this. And now seeing everybody, and like I said, with the solidarity and everybody and singing, it's kind of making me feel better. And I'm looking forward to go say my last goodbye to him.
I've never met him and he's done so much for this country. Just walking past and see him, I think both of us might just break down. So yeah, getting closer to the buses, it's becoming very emotional with people singing behind us. It's absolutely incredible.
When I got here, I was a bit, I just got here with mixed emotions, and I was excited to be here. But as the queue, when I get closer and closer to accreditation, I feel so, you become overwhelmed. Your emotions run high. You become so emotional, and you become agitated basically, and that's how I feel now.
The mood at the Union buildings, perched on a hill above the city, was much more somber. All day, the crowd trickled in to take their turn to walk past Nelson Mandela's casket. Security officers had to assist several people to take their turn to pay respects. From the famous to everyday people, each took a moment. But by mid-afternoon, authorities began sending people home, saying the cutoff time for those hoping to view Mandela's body had been reached by 3:30 p.m. Thousands of disappointed mourners left frustrated.
We are here on the queue from 8 o'clock in the morning, so we've been waiting. We're very disappointed that they cut the queue, but otherwise we are okay with it. That anyway, we are happy that we are in the surroundings and we're doing it for Tata. He was had a lot of humility. He was very patient, so we can't, do otherwise but to honor him and continue his legacy of humility.
I'm quite depressed because I didn't get in, because I spent the whole day here and waiting to get in. So unfortunately, after 3 o'clock this afternoon, they told us we couldn't get in. And I was just literally 100 meters away. So I'm actually quite depressed and upset.
Unfortunately, I couldn't get to see him due to the queue has been cut off, but I will try my luck tomorrow morning. I believe I will be the first one to see him tomorrow morning.
Well, Friday will be the last chance for mourners to get a last look at Nelson Mandela. This has been a unique honor for Madiba. He is the first South African president to lie in state. We talked earlier with David Coplan, an anthropology professor at the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg. So, Professor, thank you for joining us here on Arise.
My pleasure.
So we know that Nelson Mandela is certainly not the first South African president, but he is the first to lie in state. Talk to me about the significance of that.
Well, in the old days, South Africa was under Britain, and the Commonwealth was a colony. and prime ministers were local political figures. I don't think people would have thought of having them lie in state. Now, in 1967, I believe, John Foster became the first state president under the old minority white government. It was the National Party government, and this new title of state president was given for the first time. Before that, they were prime ministers. But even so, the very strong or strict Calvinist Protestant background of that party and of the government in general and of the Afrikaner people in general, they didn't really go for pomp and ceremony when it came to things like burials and religious matters. So they never had any of their presidents lying in state. So Mandela, the first black president, will be the first one to lie in state.
Now, in continuing to talk about that, I mean, it is the first time that he's lied, that a president has lied in state, but it seems like the government has been having problems in terms of accommodating the people. I mean, they've been planning for this for a while. Where's the disconnect between knowing that Mandela was going to die at some point and what is actually happening now that they've executed this plan?
Well, actually, to be fair, I think they've done a very good job. Of course, they knew it was coming, and they had a plan in place, and then it suddenly occurred, as it would do. And the Minister of Planning I was on with this morning in the news said that the president sat down immediately with the cabinet and made certain decisions, one of which was for Mandela to lie in state. But you have to remember that South Africa's a small country. We accommodated more than half of the heads of state in the entire world came here for a day for the memorial service, and everybody's plane landed safely, and they were well accommodated, and they were well seen off without a hitch. And then they had to turn around and decide exactly how to handle the thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people who kind of wanted to be part of it. So there were vast crowds in front of President Mandela's private house. There were crowds at some important religious churches, cathedrals, and so on. And the president made the decision that it would be good for the people to have a chance to see Mandela, if you will, before his state funeral. So it was very rapidly put together that he would be lying in state and could be viewed in the Union buildings where he was inaugurated back in 1994. But so far, I think they've done an excellent job.
You've talked about the expectations, actually, and of the world and how the world did come there to pay their respects to Nelson Mandela. What does that say to his stature as an international icon on many levels?
In his situation, he managed through, his charisma and his sacrifice and leadership to make the cause of liberation of African people in South Africa into a kind of a cause for all humanity. If this could occur, if we could have democracy, non-racial democracy in South Africa, somehow humanity would make a stride. Humanity would advance itself. We would have a better world. And he sold this idea very effectively to the world in general. Everybody who came to South Africa wanted to have a piece of him, and he gladly posed for pictures. And there have been other fantastically great leaders, of course. He was himself something of a follower of Gandhi. But, when Gandhi lied in state, did half the world come to see him? I don't think so.
You talked to us about the history of lying in state in South Africa, but you're an expert as well on this tradition as a whole. Can you give us the global history on this practice of putting a world leader basically in a glass coffin and putting them on display for all of their well-wishers and all of the people who may have served under them to see?
Let's call it in the tribal days of Europe, when the peoples and nations we now know were in their infancy. A leader's body, a king's body, if you will, was displayed so that people could know that he was dead. There wasn't communication media. Hardly anybody could read or write. So it was a function of people actually seeing important people or even local people who lived near the royal village to see that the king is dead and long live the king, because it legitimated that his successor now could claim the throne. In the States, we haven't been very keen on it, really. the first president to lie in state was Abraham Lincoln, and that was very special circumstances after his horrific assassination and this massive political presence withdrawn from the scene so suddenly when he was in office, and he was not expected to die. And in other tragic circumstances, I mean, John F. Kennedy lay in state famously and so on. And there have been senators and even representatives and other important Americans in some cases who've lain in state, but only 11 American presidents out of the 44 or whatever we have lay in state because, you know, it was democracy. And again, this idea of the leader as some sort of a king, maybe it had a bit too much of the breath of royalty or something about it, and the States wasn't so keen on this idea that the body is a kind of an icon. But for South Africa, it's quite different. Mandela really represents our current political state.
David Coplan, professor and chair of anthropology at the University of Witwatersrand. Thank you so much for joining us.
That's right. Very good.